We are here live at MTA International Studios in Silver Spring, Maryland. This is Open Forum. We have a great show for you here today. We're going to talk about peace, not just the idea of peace, this idealism where we know it's not going to be attained, but how do you attain peace locally? How do you think at the local level or act locally in order to really attain peace? And we're going to be looking at a speech by His Holiness Mirza Masroor Ahmad in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, not too long ago, and trying to understand how do we attain this in neighborhoods around the world. We have three great panelists here today. First, we have, to my right, Irfan Al-Adin from Long Island, New York. Welcome to the show. Next, we have Qudus Malik from Virginia. Welcome to the show. And we have Mahmoud Ahmed from Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great. So, Mahmoud, let's start with you. Tell me about this, everyone talks about peace, but how should we be thinking about it 30,000 feet around peace locally or acting towards peace locally?
So I think this is a really important moment to talk about the subject, because if you look at recent history, just the past few years, the world is kind of in a moment of crisis. You have these incredible divisions, right, that have happened. You have, for example, in the United States, the incredibly close election in 2016 between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton that exposed such harsh divisions, right? And since then, there's been, polarized politics. People say, members of Congress are retiring because they say they can't even talk to the people across the aisle. If you look in the UK, Brexit's happening, which is almost an unheard of thing that people in the UK would have left. And again, very narrow vote, right? And to this day, they haven't figured it out in terms of how to actually leave because they're so bitterly divided. So it's a theme all across the world. Even in developing countries, places like India, you see rising tide of violence around religion. All over the world, you are seeing these incredible divisions. And so the question is, why is this happening? And I think the reason it's happening is obviously because of a lack of peace. Well, why is there a lack of peace? Well, the reason is because people have these barriers between them, and they're not talking to each other. People are living in these kind of bubbles where they're only consuming news that is from sources that they trust, that are familiar to them. So their friendship groups are, of a particular affinity, that all the people that they know, that they trust, that they have the same views as, and they're not exposing themselves.
So is this a lot of, because of online, we don't talk to our neighbors anymore, but we talk to 10,000 people online? Is this like the in-person stuff as well?
That is certainly a part of it. I mean, if you have the option to talk to 10,000 people who you already know think exactly like you online, and you don't have to talk to your neighbor because you don't know what views they hold, that's an easy way to fall into a trap of just thinking like-mindedly with people that you already know and not exposing yourself to other viewpoints.
So, Irfan, where's the human nature in all of this? Is there interaction even required as part of human nature? And tell me more. Tell me about dialogue. Where is that required?
Well, dialogue has been stressed by His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad in his sermon that he gave in Philadelphia. He said that dialogue is crucial to breaking down barriers, and it increases the mutual understanding and knowledge. So for this reason, you'll see time after time he holds peace conference after peace conference to express the true teachings of Islam.
But what about dialogue in communities? I mean, why is that required? Are humans social by nature? Do they need interaction? I mean, how do we engage in dialogue?
Yes, well, first of all, humans are social by nature, but in addition, we need to communicate so that we know the viewpoints of others. For this reason, we can break down these barriers and we can see the likes and dislikes of others and explain our true beliefs.
So to create mutual relations, to create connection, we need social interaction.
We do.
And how does that lead to respect?
When there are studies that show that prejudices and xenophobia are at their highest when groups are insular, when they're not communicating and interacting with each other, and you can't develop respect unless you know what others are thinking. Unless you have the ability to educate yourself about the other, the outsider, you will never have respect. And I think that there is a tendency to have a false sense of respect, where I actually have friends who, or people that sometimes you come across who know nothing about Islam, but they would say, oh, Islam is a peaceful religion. And I always like to question them, because that statement in itself is not helpful. For a Muslim, the helpful statement is that you actually have understood Islam and it's coming from your heart. Otherwise, you create a zone.
Yeah, before you go there, though, what you were talking about more at a macro level was dialogue and stepping into uncomfortable situations. So for a non-Muslim example, I mean, we should going to a mosque, going to a synagogue if you don't understand the Jewish faith, going to a church if you don't understand Christianity, but that seems like is kind of the basis for dialogue.
Absolutely, and that would be the first step. And in fact, in his speech at the opening of the Philadelphia Mosque, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, he actually talks about this point, that people who were there, and there were a lot of people from all walks of life, and he thanked them, because he said that you have taken the first step. You have not just been put off by the one negative media story about Islam. You decided to investigate it, and we have confidence that when you come, our mosques are open and you will like what you hear.
Irrespective of differences of race, religion, or social background, we are united as human beings. And so it is vital that we interact with other people, rather than isolating ourselves or only mingling with members of our own particular community. In all respects, dialogue is crucial to breaking down barriers and increasing mutual understanding and knowledge. For the advancement and evolution of society, and to foster an atmosphere of peace and togetherness, respectful discourse and discussion between people and amongst different communities is vital. Therefore, I hold all of you in great esteem for taking time out of your busy lives to join us here today.
In step two, there was conversation around the Quranic quote around chapter 6, verse 109. Help me understand that. Where is this going against speaking of idols, not speaking of idols? How do you keep mutual respect?
Yes, the Holy Quran, chapter 6, verse 109, makes it clear that one should not even speak against the idols of others. Even though idolatry and association of partners with Allah is the worst sin. But we're taught not to speak negatively or attack the idols, because if you attack the idols of others, they will attack Allah Almighty. So for this reason, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad quotes this verse of the Holy Quran, advising us to speak with love and not to attack the others.
And with that, around this whole idea of love for all, hatred for none, how do you think about how at least the Muslim community sees other religions and their role in this? How do you show respect for other religions? How do you demonstrate that, and how do you sincerely not hate anyone?
Well, I think it starts, as you said, with dialogue, then it moves to respect. And then I think, respect means a lot of things, right? It means that you truly try to understand the other person's viewpoint. In the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, one of the core tenets of our faith is that all religions really originally had the same pure ideas.
Right.
So, we host, for example, a religious Founders Day every year, with the purpose of which is to allow members of each faith to talk about the founder of their religion and what the original teaching of that religion was. And our belief is that the core ideas are all the same between those religions, because they were all divinely ordained, right? So that's certainly one aspect to it. The other thing I think to also talk about is, following dialogue and respect. The next aspect of it really is about kindness and kinship. I mean, those are the next steps. That's how you really achieve peace between, different religions, different people.
So Qudus, help me understand this whole idea of universal freedom of belief. Is that an Islamic concept?
Absolutely. As far as I'm aware, Islam is, and the Holy Quran
core
was
tenet
the
of Islam.
first scripture,
Yeah.
which, not in one place, repeatedly said unequivocally, La ikraha fid din is the most famous example of this. There's no compulsion in religion. Lakum dinakum waliya din, to you, your religion, my religion. So the Holy Quran set out a framework of religious freedoms that was unparalleled before and is unparalleled today.
And so give me the example of the Prophet when he went
It
to
was so. It wasn't
Medina.
just words. It was when the Holy Prophet was chased out of Mecca with his handful of followers. He found refuge in Medina, and he entered into a covenant with all of the religions there, Christianity, Judaism, and he guaranteed rights that were they were unheard of until that point in time, where the Muslims and the Jews and all the other religions had all the rights, and this is something that is historically proven repeatedly, right? There are many independent verifications and corroborations of the Pact of Medina, and that pact was really a model that was replicated all over the Muslim world at a time when minorities were being slaughtered in Europe. In the name of Christ and the Bible, minorities enjoyed equal rights in Muslim
deep
countries.
examples.
Deep examples.
So the path to peace is what we're really talking about here in our neighborhoods and how we act. So step number one, we talked about dialogue. Yep. Real dialogue, stepping out of your comfort zone and going and learning about the others around you, so you don't have misconceived notion. You're not duped into misinformation. Step two is really around this Islamic beliefs of mutual respect, of respecting people of other religion or no religion at all, and the example of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in that space as well. So now come to me in neighborhoods around the world. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community has over 16,000 mosques around the world. What is the purpose of a mosque for a community?
The purpose of a mosque is for worship. The mosque was created for worship. So adherents gather, the Muslims gather, and they make prayer. But then again, if you look at the example of the Christians delegation, when they were in the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, they were going to go outside to make their prayer. And he said, no, you can make your prayer right here in the mosque. So that is the spirit of Islam, is that the mosque is for all religions as long as you don't perform idol worship there.
The primary objective of a mosque is to enable Muslims to join together with the spirit of mutual love and unity in worship the one God, to worship the one God in the way He has taught. At the same time, the second core objective of a mosque is to be a center for serving mankind. Every worshipper has a profound responsibility to fulfill the rights of all other members of society. Consequently, a true mosque is both a symbol and manifestation of compassion, benevolence, and unity. The history of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community testifies to the fact that wherever in the world we open mosques, our members who worship there increase their standards of love, sympathy, and loyalty towards their fellow citizens.
And this is really, how the mosques also come into the picture, is they are beacons not only of light, not only of truth, but also beacons of kindness. And that, I think, is the ultimate cure, the prescription to
let me read a
solve
quote.
this
Let me read a. That's a great point, and let me just read a quote real quick from the Quran, and then you guys help me understand it. Quran chapter 4, verse 37. It says, "And worship Allah and associate not with Him, and show kindness to parents, and to kindred and orphans, and the needy, and to the neighbor who is a kinsman, and the neighbor who is a stranger, and the companion by your side, and the wayfarer, and those whom your right hand possesses. Surely Allah loves not the arrogant and the boastful." What are we talking about here?
Well, neighbor can be your direct neighbor, the one who lives next to you.
Yeah,
But it can
that's
be-
how I think of it.
That's right, as you are next to me. But it can also be any fellow man, any fellow being. For example, as Brother Mahmoud was mentioning about the kindship and the kinship. At the lowest level, you should be fair to your neighbor. At the next level,
But just to define a neighbor, is it people at work? I mean, how do you, is it talking about literally people who you live next to, or is it talking about work colleagues, subordinates, travel companions? I mean,
all of these.
Okay, so so
Any-
neighbor is
yes,
pretty broadly
your fellow
defined.
man, your fellow
Countries,
It's-
neighboring countries.
Yeah,
Really?
true.
It's really all of the above. I mean, in
Yeah.
a connected global society,
Right.
I mean, in some level, if you're on a social media platform like Twitter or Facebook,
That's true.
you can
Right.
become a friend of almost anybody, or you can follow almost anybody. And so in that sense, a neighbor could be literally across the world.
That's
The
why-
challenge with that is how do you take, and you got to act accordingly and treat them like a neighbor.
Well, so you have to, and there's a corollary verse of the Quran that really is also bears mention here, which is, and I think you alluded to this, Brother Irfan, is Muslims are enjoined to act with justice. That's the minimum bar.
Right.
That's like
Interesting, yeah. The lowest bar, okay.
Lowest bar. Okay, and the next level is with kindness,
Right.
and then finally, and this is the highest level, the most difficult level, is what in Arabic is ita'i al-qurba, which is translated as kinship, which is you literally treat every person in the world as if they were your kin.
Right.
And that is the ultimate standard of morality. And so imagine what, we have this saying in our society, not in my backyard, right? Because somebody else can have this problem. I don't want to have this problem. But if you truly act in accordance with Islamic teachings, then you would feel every human being's pain, right? You would not want anything to happen to someone else that you don't want to happen to you, right? It's the golden way, right?
Tying that to neighbors,
Yeah.
tying that to neighbors, there is a saying of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, that says that neighbors are 40 houses around you, and if you cook something, and that aroma, whoever that aroma reaches to, in the third highest level of kinship, you should share your food with them, because that's and there were so many rights given to neighbors that there is a saying of the Holy Prophet that said that the Holy Prophet himself thought that maybe God will give neighbor a part of your inheritance.
Right.
He did not,
Right.
but that shows the respect and reverence that Islam puts on neighbors, and it's a very important point. This last point that was just made, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, in one of his speeches, and actually in multiple speeches, he has this theme that he keeps mentioning, which is that bear witness against yourself. That is justice.
What does that mean?
That means that you need to be honest with yourself and not be selective in enforcement of your ideals of peace and justice. And if individuals start doing that, you will have justice within your neighborhood, where if you are able to stand up to yourself, and he said, even bear witness against your mother and father and your children. Look at countries. If you apply this, if neighbors in this verse can be meant as neighboring countries, the bar for political leadership is that, are you talking about human rights selectively in some countries because they benefit you, or are you able to bear witness
Fair
against
justice.
yourself?
Now, this mosque is open. The local Ahmadi Muslims will consider all people in this city as their neighbors and recognize that they have many rights over them, and will strive to fulfill them to the best of their abilities. Whenever any of you stand in need of help, we pledge be there to aid and assist in whatever way we can. In times of grief and despair, we will always be there to wipe away the tears of our neighbors and to support and comfort them. Thus, I am sure that you will see for yourselves that where this new mosque is an added physical attraction and landmark in the city, even more significantly, it will spiritually enhance and beautify the society by spreading love and kindness across city and far beyond.
If you're treating every neighbor as if it is one community, for example, the Holy Quran says, "Kana nasa ummatun wahida." We created mankind as if it was one community. So if that is your view of each neighbor, that this is one huge community, then there will be nothing but love. If you go from the lowest level, which is the adl, justice, to the next level, ihsan, which is the kindness, and then the ita'i zil qurba, as you mentioned, which is the entire humanity that you're good to, then everybody is your neighbor, and you're good to everybody. And that's where you get love for all, hatred for none.
What should I be doing in my neighborhood? Give me some practical examples from this deep thoughts that we've just shared that I should start in my neighborhood. It seems like I need to go visit, if I'm a Muslim, I need to go visit my local church, my local synagogue, just to understand how the others do things. I probably need to invite my neighbors over for dinner. What do I need to do here?
I think it really starts with those honest, kind of vulnerable conversations, right? It's getting to know your neighbor. You know, somebody said to me once, try to be as kind as you can towards anyone because everyone is going through something, right? And if you can figure out...
That's to wipe away your tears.
Exactly.
Right.
If you can figure out what someone is going through and you can be there for them, right? And you can help them through something, whatever difficulty it is that they're encountering in their lives, you know, that is your neighborliness. And they will remember that not only for the kindness you showed them, but also as a mark of your character and thereby the character of the faith that you belong to.
His Holiness said, show restraint and patience at all times. Now, think about that. That addresses everyone that claims that they are committing violent acts because they have been compelled, whether it's in Kashmir or in Palestine or in other countries. And His Holiness's message is that we need to start showing patience and restraint in ourselves before we act in a way that is contrary to the teachings of Islam. Very, very important that His Holiness has this, the ultimate burden is on you. The goal of at least for Ahmadi Muslims, Ahmadi Muslims suffer tremendous persecution all over the world. Yet, under His Holiness's leadership, we are fighting for the rights of Christian refugees in East Asia. We are fighting for the rights of the Rohingya who are being persecuted in Burma. In the Uyghur Muslims that Irfan mentioned in China. So as a community that suffers so much, we are still giving people our shoulder to cry on, and we are wiping their tears. And people are shocked because our community has been referred to as one of the most severely persecuted religious communities in the world. And yet we are there for everybody else at the cost sometimes of our own interests.
So now, give me some practical, quick examples. We only have a couple
of minutes. How about a barbecue? Have a barbecue.
Have a barbecue.
Invite the neighbors over and eat together.
That's a great start.
Next time you go to the grocery store, they got a couple of kids, you got a couple of kids, pick up an extra gallon of milk and give it to your neighbor.
Oh my God, okay.
Their kids have to go to the soccer game, so do yours. Pick up theirs, you take them. The next time around, maybe they'll pick up.
So, create community.
That's right.
That's great.
I think that just providing, connecting with them, giving them the space to ask questions that they feel uncomfortable about. There is centuries of history of Islamophobia in this country, and or from Europe to the U.S., and I think that people sometimes feel uncomfortable that they may offend you. I think that reassuring them that we want to answer every question that you have because we know that we have an answer, and our answer is something that you would agree as much as we do. So don't be, be shy about engaging your neighbors and people that you come into contact with. And I think one other point would be to just tell them that the goodness that they see in you is because of your faith. It's not in spite of it.
Connect your faith, and it's the elephant and the rider example.
Right.
Your brain and your heart, and which one leads. And sometimes you disseminate information, others you demonstrate. With a bottle of milk may go a lot further than a 2-hour speech in some ways.
Yeah, I would say step outside your comfort zone to find those opportunities for meaningful connections. I mean, I'll give you a personal example. I was privileged a little while back to participate in the MTA Muslim Youth Association has a campaign called Meet a Muslim. And it literally is this kind of, it's a little bit scary. You go out and you put on a little sign that you literally hang on yourself that says, I'm a Muslim, ask me anything. And I did that at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., which is a fabulous place to do it because you get this broader definition of neighbor, right? It's people, anybody really, who can come up. And people came up and they were from all over the country, all over the world, actually. And we had the most meaningful conversations.
Wow, and that
personal,
dialogue leads to
vulnerable conversations. Somebody came up from Israel and they had a lot of misunderstandings about Islam. And I was able to explain to them, our community actually maintains a mosque in the city of Haifa where it's seen as a beacon of mutual coexistence between peoples, and suddenly a new connection was formed and some misunderstandings were removed. So that's
a great example. Thank you all for being on the show today. This was very helpful. I learned a lot, not only in terms of learning from His Holiness Muslim Ahmed's speech in Philadelphia, but actually going through it in a way where we started with dialogue, we led to mutual respect, we left to how the Quran shares what mutual respect looks like, and how do we practice this with our neighbors and our greater neighbor. I learned a new definition of neighbors as well. Thank you all for all being on the show. This has been MTA International Studios in Silver Spring, Maryland, Open Forum.